After being elected as the Speaker of the House, Om Birla has condemned the decision to impose emergency in 1975 and observed a 2-minute silence in memory of the citizens who lost their lives during the period, triggering vociferous protests and sloganeering by the opposition. Om Birla stated that the democratic value of India was crushed and freedom of expression was strangled during the dark period of emergency, as he called it. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also asserted that it is important for today's youth to know about the 1975 emergency, adding that it remains a fitting example of what happens when the constitution is trampled upon, public opinion is stifled, and institutions are destroyed. Lasting nearly 2 years from 1975 June to 1977 March, India was thrust into a dark chapter in its history with the declaration of emergency by the then Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi. In those 19 months, many leaders from the opposition were arrested and civilians were made to suffer through unspeakable brutality. They were beaten until their bodies were black and blue, they were hung upside down, and some reports indicate that they were forced to inhale chili powder. Well, the question that arises is, will Congress also condemn Indira Gandhi's brutal act? Let's start our conversation. Joining me on the telecast, let me quickly hear a word from Dr. Pooja Tripathi. She is the spokesperson of the Congress. Dr. Tripathi, the first question that arises in one's mind is that why is the opposition and particularly Congress condemning the 2-minute silence that was held in the Parliament today over the 1975 emergency that was imposed?
Megha, the best way to remember emergency is not to pass token resolution, but ensure that its follies is not repeated. Today, when most of the opposition MPs took oath, they congratulated, they opened up their statements, they congratulated the speaker and requested him that their voice would be heard, that the opposition parties would be given a free and fair spaces. And what Mr. Om Birla goes on to announce, if he wanted a resolution, he would have asked very naturally to have a discussion on the floor of House and not impose the concluding resolution on the floor of the House. So we are saying that if we are talking about the emergency for which Congress has repeatedly apologized, who will apologize for the undeclared emergency that's been in power, the country is facing for the last 10 years? When you suspend 146 MPs, you don't trample upon constitution. When only 16% of the bills passed in the House are sent to the parliamentary committees, and the bills, the wager bills, the telecommunication bills, everything is passed by a brutal voice vote in less than 1 hour of duration. When bills pertaining to thousands and thousands of crores of developmental works is passed in just 17-18 seconds, who will talk about maintaining the decorum? When you don't give a deputy...
Fair enough. Yes, there are bills that have to be passed. There are discussions that have to be had on the very important crucial issues, whether it is about NEET or anything, the paper leaks, Manipur violence. But at the same time, there has been a brutality that has taken place in the history of our country. If a 2-minute silence is observed in the Parliament, and if it is made a norm in the future Parliament sessions that take place in the country every year, what is the problem?
They are still stuck on the past, Megha. There's a NEET issue that's 24 lakh students are on the streets. There's a train accident that has costed lives of the innocent civilians.
But Pooja, there is memorial services that are done across the globe for the Holocaust that had happened, that killed millions and millions of Jews. There is a need to have a memorial service for the Kanishk bombing that took place in 1985, and this has been the continuous demand by the government of India that the Canadian leadership observe this and accept it and acknowledge and recognize the fact that this was a terror attack that happened. So what is the problem for the country to hold this memorial service, hold the 2-minute silence to ensure that this brutality, this state of emergency that was imposed, the violence that ensued, the dictatorship that lasted in our country for 19 months, is not forgotten.
Can I answer?
Yeah.
So Mega Congress has apologized for it. Let's make it like very clear. Congress has apologized, but Prime Minister Modi ji has not apologized for Manipur burning for the last 1 year. Prime Minister Modi ji has not apologized for the death of 750 farmers that took place in the farmers' protest. Prime Minister Modi ji has not apologized for the massive unemployment that he has unleashed upon the country. I am saying if you wanted a resolution, you should have opened it for discussion on the floor of House and not impose a resolution, a concluding resolution on the members of House. That's how parliaments work. When yesterday you talked about building consensus and cooperation, when you talked that sarkarein bahumat se chalti hain, but sadan sehmati se chalta hai, where is the sehmati in this? Did you take opposition members, opposition MPs into consensus, into cooperation when you asked for this resolution to be adopted? No. And this is what we are saying. You cannot run the parliament by your my way or highway attitude. You have to take each and every member of the parliament.
But that is what I'm asking. Why does the Congress have a problem if there is a resolution passed in the parliament? And why is it a problem if emergency is spoken about or talked about in the open, in public, in the parliament, in the house of the Lok Sabha? Let me also get in Savio Rodriguez, BJP leader. Savio, how do you view, again Pooja says, and it is a logical statement that, this incident has happened, it's been 50 years, it's in the past. And now there are issues, the country needs to look forward, the issues that at this point of time are marring the country, the countrymen. We talk about NEET, we talk about the NET scam that has taken place, the paper leaks, Manipur violence, it has been raised, there is no solution that has been found. Why keep harping about the past?
Megha, you have to look at what has happened in Parliament today in two parts. One is the reality of the situation that happened during emergency. Yes, you must not dwell on the past, but the past becomes a mirror that allows for you to cement what you want to do in the present so that you make a better future. So it is important for everyone and every single citizen in India to understand that the emergency was a black mark on this country. And it was done during the Congress regime. And yes, it was a Congress regime that is not existing right now. But it is a reality that it did happen when Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister. It is something that you cannot just wash away. It is something that must be reminded to our young India that this is a reality of what happens when power is put exponentially into somebody's hands and they take over the Constitution of India and take over the running of this country like it is their personal fiefdom. And that is the reality of it. Now, Congress having a problem with it, I can understand because of the attachments to Indira Gandhi. But the reality is they've been fighting about dictatorship. They've been fighting about fascism. They've been fighting about various other things, about centralizing power in one individual. Wasn't 1975 emergency a reflection of just what they're fighting for? Shouldn't that be the sole purpose of every Indian citizen, to fight against tyranny and power vested in one individual that takes the country as their own fiefdom?
Okay.
That's the reality of what the emergency is, and I think people should realize about it.
Okay.
Today, the Congress has come up with 232 seats because, along with the India Alliance, because they believed that they had a better way of running the country, and people believed in that aspect of it. If not the majority, they certainly are in the opposition. So something has to give as far as the overall interest of this country is concerned. It cannot be about politics. The emergency is a dark chapter in the life of our country, and it needs to be taught to our children. It needs to be taught, spoken about. And yes, the silence was necessary. We must not forget it, because we stand to make the same mistake, giving power wholeheartedly into the hands of individuals who use power as personal fiefdom.
Okay. All right. Jim sir, would you like to add to the argument that has been posed by Pooja and the counter argument by Savio?
See, firstly, Megha, thank you for having me. And regarding what Dr. Pooja and Savio has said, I'd like to start by saying that I had agreed to the both of them when Savio had said just a while ago that we should all stand unitedly against the power of tyranny and always ensure that our power, our individual power is not concentrated in the hand of one mighty person. I completely agree to it. And when Dr. Pooja said Congress had wholeheartedly, perhaps over and over again, the last I remember was Rahul Gandhi himself saying, the present leader of opposition himself saying, that that emergency was perhaps a mistake that happened from Congress's side. This has to be acknowledged. It was a throttling of democracy. There is no two ways about it. Whichever party was in power, whoever was the prime minister of our nation then, it was a throttle on democracy. No two ways about it.
But
that being said, what happened in the House today, that being said, what happened in the House today, Om Birla is now a two-time elected Speaker of our Indian Parliament, our lower house. He should have shown the gumption to come forward after 2 minutes of silence to condemn what happened in the Canadian Parliament. They had observed silence for the killing of Najjar, a separatist, a vocal separatist. Our Indian Parliament should have unitedly passed a resolution today, a wonderful day, a bipartisan affair. It should have been moved just so that it would have showed that we all, irrespective of the contours of our politics, would stand behind our constitution, would safeguard our interests and our nation above all. This should have definitely succeeded the 2 minutes of silence today if Om Birla really wanted or wished to be bipartisan. This is my 2 cents.
Okay, all right. Alok Mehta, let's understand from you as well about the importance, the cruciality of holding that moment's silence for the victims of the emergency, the dark phase in our history when dictatorship and absolute power destroys absolutely is what it can be summed up in, and how there needs to be bipartisan support irrespective of whether the leaders sitting in the opposition, the parties who are in the opposition were the ones whose leaders then imposed the emergency in the country.
Megha, firstly, the positive remark, I would like to say I was very happy to see Rahul Gandhi in a different dress itself, because the kurta pajama, what I used to see Rajiv Gandhi, Sanjay Gandhi, and even Mrs. Gandhi in saris, but khadi saris. And that's why after a long time, and with a positive remark, he started welcoming the speaker. That's why I feel very sad and shocking that after just few minutes, then this resolution about emergency, because emergency is symbolic in that sense, dictatorship, and 50 years, just remembering, not every year we talk about so much about it. We just publish something, we will talk on media, but Nagasaki, Hiroshima, US Parliament will differ on this issue. Or what happened in the nuclear bomb on Japan, or even Japan, how they have the good relations with the United States, but how they feel about it. So emergency is like this kind of situation in a country like India. We are not in Pakistan, where all the time dictatorship come and go and military is still ruling there. So here it was a democratic process, and Om Birla ji, as a speaker, just read a statement and resolution. I think afterwards, even Akhilesh Yadav, his father, I have great respect, he was a good chief minister, he worked very hard, and even this election, he has more seats than Rahul Gandhi in Uttar Pradesh. That's why I feel that they should have supported this. His father was in jail, Mulayam Singh Yadav. Number of other people also, I'm not talking 1 or 2%, but because they are more major leaders, and we expect more in a even for today, what the Pooja ji was talking about, the what happened in the last 10 years, okay. We don't want the repetition. What happened in Manipur, then also you should support it. You should support any kind of dictatorship, the resolution against the dictatorship and emergency. Nobody should talk. Everybody can criticize, condemn, discuss next 5 years. I welcome and we will telecast it. Rahul Gandhi ji is now the important leader, is a opposition leader now, got recognition as a opposition leader. So I expect more from Congress party and Samajwadi party and other allies, even Supriya Sule. Sharad Pawar was the young leader at that time, Mrs. Gandhi. Because I have seen this parliament when Mrs. Gandhi used to sit, Sanjay Gandhi, even in the opposition role, Rajiv Gandhi, and they were all in the opposition also, especially the Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. But they never behaved what Rahul Gandhi is behaving last 10, 20 years in the parliament. It's a shameful. I feel very bad about it because I know I used to travel with them. That's why I'm thinking that in the parliament, if you want to save the democracy and constitution, you should behave more democrat, respect the speaker and the constitution, respect the parliamentary ethics. I think it never happened in this type of condolence. Or if you say the martyrs who died, I have seen the censorship, I have seen the atrocities, number of people died. Even my family member was also jailed in Madhya Pradesh. So I remember how it was difficult for every member of the family. I'm not a partisan still. I'm working journalist since last 50 years. That's why I feel sad about it. And that's why, because you started this program, I request on behalf of my media, my generation, that they should respect democratic norms. At least we expect more. And we will appreciate Rahul Gandhi, that he should emerge as a good opposition leader and pass good resolutions. Speak for hours and hours. We will sit there whole night. If they speak on point by point and just like Bhupesh Gupta used to do, Somnath Chatterjee, George Fernandes, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, even including Narendra Modi nowadays, what he, in the last 10 years, he is speaking in the parliament also. So this kind of leadership if they show, Atal Bihari was and Sushma Swaraj was opposition leaders. Just see their records. That's why I feel that, but we support the democracy. I'm not supporting Congress or BJP. I see, what happened in Manipur or what is happening in the students, we should talk about it. But there are time enough.
Okay. So, Dr. Pooja, the same thought is how I started the conversation with you as well. Why shouldn't a bipartisan support not be shown to the act that was observed in the parliament today? And the argument that you hold does not have, a lot of weight when you say a 2-minute silence will then take away from the time that is given to the parliamentarians to discuss and debate the important issues. Don't you think this is also an important enough issue for the country to remember the things that were done, the things that were done by Indira Gandhi in those 19 months, and the kind of excesses that had been shown to the journalists, to opposition leaders, to the people who were showing dissent to Indira Gandhi's decision?
Megha, I'm not saying that 2-minute time will take up the time allotted to the members. I'm saying when you pass a resolution at the floor, at the opening day of the floor of the House, as a Speaker of the House, you should open it for discussion and let the discussion ensue. On January 24, 1978, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, while she was addressing a public rally in Yavatmal, she publicly owned up all the mistakes for the emergencies. And the ensuing elections that happened, she was thrown out of the parliament. And that's how democracy, that's how the people of the India teach yourself a lesson. She was woman enough. I'm not saying man enough. Please mark my words. She was woman enough to own up her mistakes. Is Narendra Modi ji man enough to own up the mistakes for what's happening in Manipur? Is Narendra Modi ji man enough for owning up the mistakes of what happened with our 750 farmers? Is Narendra Modi ji man enough for opening up the mistakes that his midnight declaration on GST has killed up 18 lakh manufacturing units? That was in news yesterday. Is Narendra Modi ji man enough to tell that why ED, CBI, IT and all the constitutional bodies, the 96% of cases are leaders? Is Narendra Modi ji man enough to tell us that in the course of elections, 2 opposition chief ministers were put in jail and the level playing field was all destroyed? Is Narendra Modi ji, forget everything, is Narendra Modi ji man enough to tell that he actually lowered the discourse of the political campaigning, the political tone from machli, mutton, mujra and everything?
But
He did.
again, can a comparison be made of all the lists that you at this point of time narrated and listed versus what happened in 1975? Alok Mehta wants to respond to this. Yes, sir.
I'm very sorry because, this kind of allegation, early election is over. I think what the people used to say, the Congress leaders and the alliance people, maar denge, kaat denge, Modi ke boti kaat denge. This was the election time. This was the democratic process. In the hands of constitution, your colleagues in talking about, forget about the machli and meat, you can condemn that. But what about the Prime Minister of India? You see read what even Mrs. Gandhi said, even the emergency when she imposed. Just go and read what she said in the parliament in July 1975. I can give the dates. Just go to the parliament. And she says, because diminishing the parliament to the Prime Minister of India is very bad, and that's why I imposed the emergency. You want this kind of situation again in India? Because Rahul Gandhi thinks he can't become again the dictator. What he wanted to become the dictator.
Okay.
That's why he's saying tomorrow this government will fall.
Apologize for it, and the public threw her out. That's what I'm saying. That's the sole point I am saying in the elections that ensured.
No, you're not saying that. I'm talking 75.
After 3 years,
that's 75,
okay, all right.
Madam.
You cannot just trample upon constitution.
Jimsa Abraham also wants to make a point. Yes.
See, this is one place I would contrast my argument with Dr. Pooja's. We should, like when we ask the NDA, especially the BJP, to take responsibility, should be humble enough, if I'm not right, to own up responsibilities of what happened under Indira Gandhi's watch around 30 years ago or 40 years ago. This has to be understood. This has to be addressed and acknowledged. Our discussions, our discourse can only move forward when we acknowledge our differences and our shortcomings. This was a black chapter in the history of Indian democracy, there is no doubt about it. But what happened with the present regime, especially today, you're supposed to have a bipartisan affair today. It's a beautiful parliament. You have 240 members on the one side. You have 40% of India voting for one coalition, 42% of India voting for the other. So it's almost an equal balance. So it was today that we had to, after this resolution or 2-minute silence, have to pass another one condemning Canadian Parliament for what they did and stand unitedly for our national interest. This would have been a more colorful affair. But sadly, we chose the partisan one. We chose to polarize our voters, our citizens on party lines again. So this is something I do not think will bode well either for the government or for the nation. We should actually look towards stitching alliances, having a space where we heal, because especially in the last couple of months, our rhetoric, the election promises were not the most we're not the most, if dare I could say, the ones that could make us united, right? It was completely divisive. We have to move over and heal as a nation. And the first step would be to do away with things and affairs that are partisan.
Okay. Savi, would you like to add now? It has been 2 days that the issue of emergency has raged on in the parliament, and outside of it, as political leaders, BJP leaders take on the mantle and make it into a political debate, make it into an agenda to attack the opposition, to attack the Congress. Here on, of course, do we have the hope that the parliament will run smoothly and time and effort be allowed for the parliamentarians to discuss and debate the issues that are important, the issues that are of cruciality, that ail the nation and its countrymen?
Megha, the most important thing for us to actually understand is that the discussion on the emergency is primarily because June 25th was the emergency day. And it is a part of our history, a black chapter, which coincidentally came during the time when the parliament session is going on. So I don't see anything wrong in reminding the people of this country about the black chapter that existed and still continues to exist in terms of the kind of pressure that existed at that point of time, the way people were treated at that point of time. We cannot, and I'm saying this again, irrespective of a political party, we cannot allow for any form of dictatorship or fascism where power is bestowed in one person's hand and that person takes control of the constitution of this country and violates it and misuses it for political advantage, which was clearly what was seen in the emergency. It has got nothing to do with any political party. The fact of the matter is the political leader at that point of time, Indira Gandhi, who had immense power in her hand, thought it was important for her at that point of time to use these dictatorial tendencies that she showed at that point of time to bend the will of the people to what she wanted done. And that in a democracy cannot be allowed, Megha. And that's why June 25th should be talked about in all schools and colleges, and our kids must be educated about it so that we don't repeat the same mistake.
Yeah, but I don't think the Congress has an issue. I don't think Congress has an issue with that. I don't think Congress has an issue with that. I think Rahul Gandhi has come out and he's spoken openly that it is
so what is the
blot
problem
in the
remembering
country's
it about
democracy,
it when
in the
yesterday
history
was
of democracy.
June 25th? Yesterday was June 25th. There is no harm in remembering about it in Parliament today. Yesterday, of course, there were other activities going on, which is the oath taking. Today, the oath taking finished, and that is why it was brought up. It's as simple as that.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
It is June 25th was yesterday.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Moving on, here's to our Parliament special session with debates and discussions that will allow for meaningful bills to be passed, meaningful debates to be had, because it is the parliamentarians who are elected by the people. They are representatives of the citizens of our country, and they need to work for the welfare of the country. On that note, I'm out of time. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast. Thanks for watching NewsX.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.